here's what Krishna says. For you to take birth in a devotee family was made possible because in your previous life you were a devotee, so you took birth in a devotee family. Proof. Bhagavad Gita, proof. And now you got a new body. And now you have another chance. Another chance to become, like your father said, become a pure devotee. No more birth, please. Punar janma na. Attend Mangal Arti as much as you can. And chant your rounds every day. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Punjabi Hare Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. One of the rules. If you have one of these, turn it off. And who doesn't have one of these? For our viewing audience, some of you may not have been with us last week, so I'll give you a little review of what we did last week because this is a continuation from last week. We're going to be discussing the 6 questions and 6 answers that make up the first 3 chapters of Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam. And a little background. Shortly after Krishna's departure from this world, Kali Yuga began. And the sages, they knew what that meant. Bad. Manda samanda matayo, manda bhagya yupadruta. Bad. So they wanted to do something because of that circumstance. So they decided that they would perform a long extended, several hundred year sacrifice. One sacrifice ends, the other one's beginning, and just continue, yagyas, to counteract the negative influences of this age, because that's something that they knew how to do. And in their midst there was Sutta Goswami. So they addressed Sutta Goswami and asked him 6 questions. Specifically, the topics of the essence of what Srimad Bhagavatam is. And they asked him specifically because he had been in the audience when Shukadeva Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam for the first time publicly. And he not only heard it, but he remembered it. And not only he heard it and remembered it, but he understood it. He has fully realized. That's described in the first chapter. So there was a series of questions that were asked in chapter 1 that were responded to starting in chapter 2. And now we're moving on to chapter 3. One of the questions in chapter 2 was, please describe the activities of the personality of Godhead when he appears in this world specific to the process of creation. And the concluding verses of chapter 2 began discussing the Purusha Avatars, because they're the forms of the Lord that appear in this world for the purpose of creation. Purusha Avatars means Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Those 3 Vishnu forms, that's the Purusha form, Purusha Avatars. Then another question is, what was the purpose of his appearance? And the answer that was given by Sutta was to attract the hearts and the minds of everyone, and specifically to deliver those who are pure devotees by his wonderful pastimes. So now we're continuing those 2 questions in the beginning of chapter 3. Canto 1. The first five, so there's 34 verses, which we'll be discussing. The more than 34. Yeah, 43. The first 5 verses are continuing one by one the Purusha Avatars. Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Shirodakshay Vishnu. These are one of the categories of avatars that are discussed in this chapter and in further detail described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is kind of like a summary. Because what's in these first 3 chapters, the rest of the Bhagavatam is expanding. So the essence is in these first 3 chapters. So it's very important to understand essences, and that's what we're doing. I'm not going to be able to go through details because that's not the time that we have, nor the circumstance. But it will encourage you all to read Srimad Bhagavatam in detail and study it carefully, but we'll just do the essence part. So the first 5 verses are dealing with the Purusha Avatars, those who are responsible for creation. And then the next 22 verses, that's 6 through 27, are describing the avatars of Vishnu. And then common in Vedic text, the avatars of Vishnu. And the 5th question, remember there's 6 questions. Chapter 2 discusses 4 of the answers to those questions. Here's the 5th question. O wise Sutta, the sage is asking Sutta Goswami, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations. Such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by His internal potencies. So from 6 through 27, we hear another category. So far, Purusha Avatars. Then there's Leela Avatars. And we all know what Leela Avatars, at least those of us in this room. Forms of the Lord that are noted for very attractive and wonderful pastimes. And the next verse is 28. And we're going to spend a lot of time on 1.3.28. 1.3.28 is that important verse that says Krishna is the source of all avatars. He's listed in that list of 22. I'll say it slowly. He's spoken of as an avatar of Vishnu. And then the statement is made of all these who are avatars of Vishnu, one is the source of them all. It's really easy to understand this way. We all came through the door. Before we came through the door, we existed. And then we came through the door, and now we're here. Similarly, all the avatars existed before they became avatars of Vishnu. Vishnu is like the door. And then they appeared, and they performed pastimes, and they returned to their abode. So, of all those who appeared as avatars of Vishnu, one is the source of all of them. And Krishna, Swami Bhagavan Krishna, is that person who is the source of all the avatars, in fact, the source of everything. Ete Chanksa Kala Pungsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. That's the Sanskrit, well-known verse. But here's the explanation of Jiva Goswami. Now, some of you here or in the viewing audience may not know who is Jiva Goswami, so let me describe who is Jiva Goswami first a little bit. And I'll assume that you all know who Krishna is, our listening audience. I mean, everybody in this room, of course, but Krishna appeared after his departure. At the end of Dwapara Yuga, he appeared in the early stages of Kali Yuga to teach the Yuga Dharma, how the chanting of the holy name leads to the stage of perfection, and how to follow his instruction. The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is to surrender to him. How do you live your life that way, in the mood of surrendered? How do you do that? What does it look like? The Lord Chaitanya came to teach that. And he had principal associates. And amongst them, one of them was Jiva Goswami. There were 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And Jiva was very young, and he learned from one of the elders of those 6 Goswamis. And he wrote commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. He wrote 3 commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, you can say even he wrote 4. He loved Srimad Bhagavatam. And he wrote prolifically. And so in his writings, Jiva Goswami's writings, he explains this verse, 1:3:28, is the essence verse of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. There's 18,000 verses, and 17,999 are resting on one verse. It's a very strong verse. Foundational. And he has there's this nice Sanskrit term, Pari Bhasa Sutra. Pari Bhasa Sutra. Pari Bhasa Sutra. Sutra. Sutra, you know the meaning of sutra? A little code. Sutra, like Vedanta Sutra. Sutra. Sutra means code. Very tight, aphorism type statement. It's very short, succinct. And amongst all sutras, this one is the essence sutra of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm going to read what he has written, or translation from Sanskrit, what he's written, in his Krishna Sandarbha. It's defined this way. A Pari Bhasa Sutra is a definition of terms or system of abbreviations placed at the beginning of a book, which must be understood in order to properly understand the remainder of the book. A Pari Bhasa Sutra explains the proper method for understanding a book. It gives the key by which one may understand the actual purport of a series of apparently unrelated facts and arguments. Those that would like a copy of this, I'm reading from, you were supposed to get a copy. You got a copy?
I think you sent it out, Maharaj.
Huh?
You sent it out.
I didn't.
Somebody sent it out.
Good. Somebody was supposed to send it out. Yasodanandana was supposed to send it out. Okay, but rather than checking to see who sent it out, he was supposed to send it out. So if you would like a copy, I don't know how to advise you, but you can get a copy. Submit your name to the person who sent this out, Yasodanandana, and he'll send you a copy of what I'm reading, because it's important. It's the single most important verse in the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll say it this way. If you read something later, if you want to make sure you've understood it correctly, it has to match up with this one. And if your understanding doesn't match up with this one, you've got the wrong understanding. And you have to rethink your understanding so that it does match up with this one. Because this governs all the other 17,999 verses. It's a really important verse. The Paribhasa Sutra is only stated once in a book, and it is not repeated. A single Paribhasa Sutra may govern the context of even a very large book with millions of statements or arguments. And he states, as an example, there's a certain text in Panini's Atadhyasi, and he gives the Sanskrit and says this is an example. I'll give you an example. Another example. Some of you have begun, well, after you complete Bhagavad Gita in your Bhakti Vriksha group, at some point you're going to start to learn Nectar of Devotion. That has a Paribhasa Sutra in Nectar of Devotion. And it's very simple. It's one sentence, one shloka that explains, it gives a definition of bhakti. Because Nectar of Devotion is about bhakti, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And all the other verses are resting on that one verse. And it follows the rules. Elsewhere, Rupa Goswami writes, again in Krishna Sandarbha, this third chapter of first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam tells the secret of the Lord's birth and gives a summary of all the descriptions of the Lord's incarnations, because it comes at the beginning of the book and because it describes what will follow later on. This Ete Changsa Kala Pungsa verse is the Paribhasa Sutra. So I'm going to repeat it again because it's so important. There's definition or qualifications that allow one to determine this is it. So I'll read it again, his words. A definition of terms or system of abbreviations placed in the beginning of a book, which must be understood in order to properly understand the remainder of the book. It explains the proper method for understanding a book. It gives the key by which one may understand the actual purport of a series of apparently unrelated facts and arguments. It's not repeated. It may govern the contents of even a very large book with millions of statements and arguments. So that essence, let's go back to the lessons, his responses to the first two questions. From chapter 1 of Canto 1, what's the essence of all scripture? People in this age are very lazy, misguided, unfortunate, disturbed. They're not going to go through all the Vedas and understand the essence. Could you do it, please? To give you a little statement, what's the essence of all the Vedas? That's a good question, isn't it? And the essence of all the Vedas is that which awakens love for the source of everything. And that means is devotional service. So devotional service unto whom? Devotional service unto the source of everything. And Krishna is that source of everything. Very important. I'll cover this other point again because it's also important. And persons that are not familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam have so many different ideas, such as common, Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. So at the beginning of the chapter, the Purusha Avatars are identified. Then next 22 Leela avatars, or avatars of Vishnu, amongst them is Krishna. And then comes this verse that says Krishna is the source of all of them. They all exist in the spiritual world, and they descend in this world, perform pastimes, and then return to the spiritual world. And even in the spiritual world, Krishna is the source of all of them. Krishna is the source of Vishnu. Krishna is the source of everything. And it's specifically this form of Krishna that appears once in the day of Brahma. During each day of Brahma, there's 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas. And one of those, 999, Krishna appears as Vasudeva Krishna, the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. And one of those, in the day of Brahma, he goes to Braja and performs the same pastimes he performs in the spiritual world, Goloka. That person is the source of everything. He's the source of all the avatars, he's the source of all potencies, he's the source of the material creation, he's the source of everything. And we have to keep going because there's 43 verses in this chapter. But it's a very important verse. And then the next one is the Phala Stuti. It's describing the fruit of hearing. And that's text 29, which reads, "Whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life." So that's something you can tell somebody that says, "Oh, somebody's giving me a hard time." Hey, you know what you can do? You can hear Srimad Bhagavatam every morning and every evening, and you can be free from all miseries of life. Wait a minute. I want a practical solution, please. Well, it is a practical solution. Spiritual solutions are not impractical. So now, the next 10 verses, 30 through 39, it starts with some details about matter, and then moves upwards to Brahman, conception, Paramatma conception, and Bhagavan conception. And I think I'd like to read them. They're short, starting with text 30. The universal form, Virat. The conception of the Virat, universal form of the Lord, as appearing in the material world as imaginary, it is to enable the less intelligent and the neophytes to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. Gives an example. Clouds and dust are carried by the air, but the less intelligent person say the sky is cloudy or the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant material bodily conceptions on the spirit self. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without any formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has his form beyond this subtlety, otherwise he could not have repeated births. Whenever a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord. If the illusory energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, he then becomes at once enlightened with self-realization and thus becomes situated in his own glory. We're halfway done. 5 more to go. Thus, learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn and inactive, which is undiscoverable even in Vedic literatures. He is the Lord of the heart. So we've moved from the living entity, matter, the living entity, Brahman. Now we're moving to Paramatma. It's touching the topics because it's going to be expanded later. The Lord, whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the 6 senses and is fully omnipotent with 6 opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them, and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent. The foolish, with a poor fund of knowledge, cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama, nor can they express such things, neither in their speculations nor in their words. 2 more verses. Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries a wheel of the chariot in his hand, can know the Creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence. Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant. For such inquiries invoke transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universes, and guarantee 100% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. No more birth, Radhika. This is it. Put your foot down. No more. And this is the means. Not just no more birth and death, but being again connected with that which is the source of everything, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, Sri Krishna. So you only have 5 verses remaining, and we're completed the chapter. The next verses are glorification directly of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the 6th question, going back to chapter 1, the 6th question was, now that Krishna has left, where have religious principles taken shelter? And the answer is text 43. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. I'll just say a couple of things about this verse. Celebrated verse. Prabhupada loved to speak about it. And he made a comparison when the sun sets in the west. Which direction is west? That way's west. So it rises over on the east. So when the sun sets in the west, it gets dark. When Krishna departs, it gets dark. The age of Kali is soon to come. But shortly after Krishna's departure, on the eastern horizon arises the moon, as brilliant as the sun, giving darkness, light in this darkness of the age of Kali. But it's as bright as the sun, but it's cooling like the moon. Krishna, when he came, he had weapons and he destroyed demons. And the Bhagavatam destroys demoniac mentality just by the soothing and cooling rays that are as bright as the sun, as brilliant as the sun, but soothing like the moon. And it's not different than Krishna himself. Just like we say commonly, the name of Krishna and the person Krishna are the same. You probably all have heard this many times. It's expressed several places, but one celebrated place is from Padma Purana. Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto, then the last line, Abhinatvam Nama Namino. There's Nama and Nami. There's the name and the object named. That's Sanskrit rule. Nama and Nami. So, Abhina, there's no difference. Bhina means difference and Abhina means no difference. There's no difference between the name and the person. No difference. And there's no difference between the Srimad Bhagavatam and the person. In our morning classes we read, and yesterday evening actually we also read some nice references where it's stated within scripture, the Bhagavatam is Krishna. Krishna is the Bhagavatam. So, he's very merciful. We can hold him in our hand. And we can speak his words. And that sound vibration is Krishna. Just in the morning class, I read 5 of the verses that another one of the 6 Goswamis, Sanatan Goswami, wrote about the Bhagavatam. He compiled 417 prayers to the Bhagavatam. That was one of his writings. And he loved the Bhagavatam because he understood the Bhagavatam is Krishna. And through the Bhagavatam, he had access to Krishna in detail, in full glory, and everything. So this verse is saying, in this age of Kali, the question is, when Krishna departed, the statement is, wherever Krishna walked, when he was on earth, he made the place auspicious. Just because he placed his 2 lotus feet on earth. And the sages are saying, Krishna's gone. Where's the auspiciousness now? Where's the protection of religious principles now? Krishna's gone. What to do? And the answer is, no worries. Shortly after Krishna departed, Krishna appeared again in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, as brilliant as the sun, giving light in this dark age of Kali. And it's true. Those who take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam have light in their life. Even it's a dark age. It's a dark age. I don't need to beat that one too much. It's a dark age. Phew. Where's the shelter of religious principles and knowledge and spiritual well-being, spiritual joy? Where do we Krishna made this arrangement. So it comes right after the section of describing incarnations. But this is a literary incarnation. There's just as when Krishna appeared he had form, Padma Purana describes when the Bhagavatam appears it has form. The first two cantos are his lotus feet. Cantos 3 and 4 are his lower legs. 5 and 6 are his thighs, then his waist, etc., etc., up to his smiling face. That's Srimant Bhagavatam. So we approach first canto, his lotus feet, you're safe. Because if you're at his lotus feet, you've got him. There's no disconnect between his feet and him. And the mood of service, without motivation and without interruption, brings real satisfaction. This is one of the earlier verses. Brings real satisfaction. Ye natma suprasidati. Atma suprasidati. Suprasana. Full satisfaction. When learns that art of service that's without motivation, ahaituki, and without interruption. It's very pleasing to hear, and the difficulty is we're very distracted people. We have so many things, and duties and things. Unpleasant people, coronavirus, Chicago winters, and it's etc. There's lots of distraction to disturbances. What to do? So that was the question. What's the all around good for all living entities for all times? Devotional service. That's the question. That's the answer. And hearing Bhagavatam helps us very much revive that loving service to Krishna. All around good for all living entities. So there's a little summary of the 6 questions. I touched on them from last week, and now more extensively for this week. And those are the first 3 chapters, and you can say Bhagavatam's over. At least the essence of the Bhagavatam is now completed. And then because it's the format of questions and answers, in the beginning of chapter 4, there's some more questions. Oh, that was really nice. Can you explain this more? And can you explain that more? And it goes on. So let's see if there's some discussion. Now this is the circumstance is the Sunday public lecture. So instead of being where we would be otherwise, we're doing our social distancing thing over here and with our little camera. What do you think? We're doing all right?
Good.
Huh? We're okay?
Yes.
You have any question?
No.
You like Krishna?
Yes.
Ah, good. Do you like hearing Srimad Bhagavatam stories? Does your mother read Krishna book for you sometimes?
Yeah.
She's looking at Mom. Sometimes? Ask her to read Krishna book with you.
Yes.
Okay? You know what?
What?
There's a book that's for kids on Srimad Bhagavatam. first canto. It's already published. Get a copy. It's real easy. It's kid language. Nice pictures and activities and kid friendly. You'll like it. Okay? Okay. Discussion?
Yes, Maharaj. In one of the shloka, we read that Krishna's universal form is imaginary. So, on the other hand, we hear that Janma Karma Chame Divyam, his form is transcendental. And Prabhupada writes, universal form, which is Krishna, how can that be imaginary?
You understand the question? You clear what the question is? On the one hand, on the other hand, so how do you, there seem to be contradictory statements. So, the translation, Prabhupada's translation is the universal form is imaginary. And then elsewhere, it's a form that is transcendental, so how can a transcendental form be imaginary? Or it's his form, so how can it be imaginary? I'll add to that. The conclusion of Canto 1, Srimad Bhagavatam, finally Shukadeva Goswami makes an appearance. He comes on stage. And the circumstance is the king, the emperor of the world, Maharaj Parikshit, is going to die. And so the sages have come to be present for the occasion of his departure and make auspiciousness for his departure. And in their midst comes Shukadeva Goswami. So the king asks Shukadeva Goswami two questions. What is the duty of a man who's about to die? And who's not about to die? If not tomorrow. We're all about to die. And the other question is, what is that subject matter that should be always heard, chanted, and remembered? What is that subject matter that should always be heard, chanted, remembered? And so Shukadeva Goswami starts speaking. For the first words he speaks in the whole Bhagavatam is Canto 2, Chapter 1. And it's the universal form. Oh, wait a minute. And it's said that by meditating upon the universal form, one's intelligence becomes purified sufficiently, then one can understand the Bhagavan feature. So if the form is imaginary, how can your intelligence become purified? By meditating upon something that's imaginary. So what does that mean? How are we to understand? That's your question. And I can easily give a whole class on that one question. And more than one. So, but imaginary in the sense of temporary, like now you see it, now you don't. Temporary, asat. Sat and asat. Sat is permanent, existent, sat, the sat feature of the Supreme Lord. And then there's asat, that which is not permanent. So the universe is not permanent, and the universal form is not permanent. But it is a form of the Lord. It's not imaginary in the sense that Harry Potter. You know what that is, right? Good for you. Fiction. Then, that's just imagination. Without, other examples of imagination. It's just imagination. Fiction. So not imaginary in that sense, but imaginary in the sense of now you see it, now you don't. Temporary. That sense. Because that meditating upon that Virat Rupa qualifies one to become aware and realize in the Bhagavan feature. It's a real form. And now you see it, and now you don't. The universe comes into being, stays for some time, and is withdrawn. There's more, but that's a beginning. Anyone else in the room here? Because otherwise we're going to go to online questions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, as you said, Bhagavatam is none other than Krishna, right?
Bhagavatam is?
And none other than Krishna.
None
Krishna,
other than, yes,
yeah.
identical with.
Yeah. So, does it need any qualification, or what would be the state of mind to start reading the Bhagavatam even one doesn't understand? Or because it's such a vast subject matter, so by the time I read like second chapter, I don't remember the first chapter at all. So, what the mind purity does it need any purity of mind to understand, or just go on reading with that?
Well, by reading you become purified in mind. When you're not clean, you go in the shower. It's a spiritual bath. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam, whether you understand it or not, it's a spiritual bath through sound. And by reading, cleansing or purification is going on. I recited. Here it is again. Shrinvata swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana ridyantaksto yabhadrani vidhonoti saritsatam. The abhadras that are within the heart, ridyantaksto yabhadrani vidhonoti surit satam. It's a cleansing. Just whether you understand or don't understand, you're being cleansed. Radhika probably doesn't understand a lot of what's being said, but purification. A little Prabhupada story. Two Prabhupada stories on this. Prabhupada explained that Bhakti Siddhanta, his spiritual master, spoke in such high language, even in Bengali, because it was his first language and Prabhupada's first language, but he would sit and not understand. He said, my brain was puzzled. But I had full trust that that sound vibration would purify me. And by my hearing, that is my qualification today. I can speak what I'm speaking today because of what I heard from him. Then here's another. The devotees are in with Prabhupada and doing Pandal programs in different places. Mostly, depending upon the audience, he would speak in English, but sometimes he would speak in Hindi. So here's these American sannyasis on the stage. They have nice kirtan, and then Prabhupada starts speaking in Hindi. So they're looking at each other like, huh? And they got up and started to leave. And Prabhupada in English said, where are you going? And they said, well, we can't understand you're speaking in Hindi, so we thought we should make ourselves useful doing some of the service. And he said, sit down. Even if you don't understand, it's purifying. In Hindi, where it's not even the same language, but to speak of the concepts that are being expressed. And we could give other examples. A child within the womb. What does the child within the womb understand about anything? But the sound vibration, just a pregnant mother reciting aloud Srimad Bhagavatam, it's spiritually nourishing for the child in her womb as well as for her, whatever she's understanding or not understanding. But by hearing that sound, purification and gradual understanding comes. It's not an intellectual experience. It's a spiritual experience. The understanding is remembering what you've forgotten, not getting your material intelligence wrapped around a certain topic and now I got it. That's not the experience. If that's what one is hoping to have, you'll be disappointed because that's not what it is. We use our intelligence, but it's another kind of intelligence. It's the intelligence that tells you how to get to Krishna. Dadami bodhi yogam tam yena mamopi yanti te. How to go to Krishna, that kind of bodhi. Okay.
Guru Maharaj, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. Okay. We'll go to online.
Yes.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a small question. We heard that Krishna is going to appear every one day of Brahma day, and that is
He appears in Vrindavan one day, one of the yuga cycles in the 1,000 yuga cycles. But the other 999 he appears.
8.6 billion years or something.
What?
Some calculation, 8.6
6 billion years.
Okay.
last time.
It's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, we heard that one. My question is Sri Chaitanya is none other than the Krishna incarnation, right?
Yes.
So, as for the scriptures, Krishna appeared in Kurukshetra time, that means 5,000 years back, right?
Yeah.
So, by doing any calculation, it's we heard that 8.6 billion later, next appearance. But in between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is he almost is Krishna appearance, right?
Let me say back. Let me say it differently than what you said, and you can just nod your head and say yes. Every day of Brahma, 1,000 yuga cycles, and you gave that nice number. That's how long the 1,000 yuga cycles. And that's his day, and then there's his night. But just during his day, 1,000 yuga cycles. And of those 1,000 yuga cycles, one of them is when Krishna appears in Vrindavan. And after Krishna appears in Vrindavan, the same of those 1,000 yuga cycles, that same one, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shortly thereafter appears. Krishna appears in Dwapara Yuga, Lord Chaitanya appears in Kali Yuga, just after Krishna appears in Vrindavan. Yes? See, I thought you'd say. So you're just looking for confirmation that you got it right. Yes? Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Yeah.
Maharaj, what are the pastimes of Vasudeva Krishna for those 999 if he do not appear in Vrindavan?
Well, what does Krishna do when he goes back to Mathura in Dwarka? That's what he does. He, for same purposes, the same three purposes. Pritranaya sadhanam vinasha. That's what he does. Okay. Online?
This is from Ramaragha Prabhu. Kali is allowed to stay in 5 specific places by Maharaj Parikshit, chapter 17, first canto. Is it then fair to say that Kali is not only a function of time, but also a function of place? Is this the right understanding?
I'm not sure what he's asking by the question, so I can't say yes or no. I mean, if what you're saying is, yes, it's the age of Kali, but the personality of Kali can only reside in these 5 places, so it's also not only during that Kali Yuga time, but it's also a place. But during Kali Yuga, where is there a place where that's not? So it's not just a function of place, it's time and degradation all over the place. The absence of Kali, that's consciousness specific. Go ahead. Next.
This is from Giri Votikota. Could you please enlighten us more about the subtle body and its role when we're chanting?
These questions are classes unto themselves. I mean, so I have to give a very short answer to this, but it's a big subject. More than subtle body, specifically the mind, that part of the subtle body, is to be engaged in receiving through the ear the sound. And that's the proper function of the mind when there's chanting. And that is the mind goes to the name. And the mind goes to the name through the ear. It's very simple. The senses are grouped about the mind. You'll find that in chapter 15 Bhagavad Gita. Some of you have just begun your Bhagavad Gita study. When you get to chapter 15, Krishna describes the process of transmigration where the soul moves on to another body. The mind, with the senses grouped around the mind, takes shelter in the next body. So this it's a detail, but the senses means not the sense organ. There's a sense organ, there's the ear, and then there's the power of hearing. That's the sense. We use the sense organ, but it's the power of sense, the hearing power, needs to be engaged in the sound vibration, and then the mind can be captured. The ear is more powerful than the mind. And if you hear, you can capture the mind. We'll say it negatively. If you're not attentively hearing, you won't be able to capture the mind. The mind will roll and go all over the place like it's used to doing. But if you want to capture the mind, you have to hear. It's not just the organ, it's the power of hearing directed to the sound. The spiritual ear is the language that Bhaktisiddhanta uses. The spiritual ear has to hear the sound, and then the mind can be conquered. And when the mind is conquered, that's samadhi. Your mind is fixed. The mind, say it negatively, the mind will not be fixed if you're not hearing. So effort in the process of mantra meditation is hearing the sound. Then you can add adjectives, hear with feeling, and hear attentively, and other adjectives. But and then how to achieve all those things. But the primary focus is hearing, however it's done. That's the subtle body. The function of the subtle body is hearing the sound, or receiving the sound through the ear. Next.
This is from Atulya Mataji's daughter Vishaka. Does Krishna control us or give us choice to do one thing or the other?
Remind me, how old is Vishaka?
She's 5 or 6.
She'd make a good friend, right? Yeah. So, to say it again, I was still like, one more time.
Does Krishna control us or give us choice to do one thing or the other?
He gives us choice, but not unlimited. And once we make a choice, we're dependent upon Krishna to fulfill that choice. And he may, like, supposing you want a big plate of ice cream, thinking something that a child might want. You can desire, and you have freedom to desire a big plate of ice cream, but you may not get it because we're dependent. Not only mom and dad, but you may not get the ice cream. Maybe the ice cream store is locked up because of coronavirus. And so we're dependent upon Krishna to have that free will choice that we make fulfilled. That's it. Yes?
Maharaj, in the second canto, second chapter, 13th verse, purport, there is one sentence Prabhupada wrote. I want to read and I want to understand that. The conclusion is that those who are still entrapped by sex indulgence should never progress to meditation above the feet of the Lord, therefore recital of Srimad Bhagavatam by them should be restricted to the first and second cantos of the great literature. So my question is, if I am trapped, should I not read further? Should I repeatedly do only 2 cantos?
This statement is exceptional. Now let's step back from the exceptional and go to the big picture. For example, Prabhupada made Krishna book, Canto 10. And he wanted us, and we did it. We distributed it widely all over America. And people in America are not fond of that particular regular principle. So, taken in the context of the big picture, this exceptional statement is an exceptional statement. And so why is he making an exceptional statement? Well, one can consider he wants people to be serious about going further in spiritual life. This is an essential element for going further in spiritual life. But he didn't emphasize that over and over and over. What he emphasized over and over is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, not just Canto 1 and 2. And it will free one of abhadras, all unwanted things in the heart. Okay, looks like we're done. Okay, and I want to ask her something too.
Why does Krishna steal butter, but he can wish anything? But why isn't he wishing butter? Butter.
Why Krishna is stealing butter? He can wish, he can get it, right? Then why he is stealing butter?
You're a smart little girl. What you say is true. Not only that, Mother Jasoda says, our neighbors say he goes into their storeroom and steals butter. I don't believe it. Do you know how many cows Nanda Maharaj has? So many 100,000 cows. We don't have any shortage of milk and dairy products, so I don't believe he's going to the storehouse of other ladies and stealing butter and milk and dairy products. And so then the gopis say, we'll catch him. We'll show you. We'll catch him. And they caught him. He was inside stealing butter and they locked him inside. You know the story? So all the cowherd boys, there was a window up there, and they all were able to crawl out the window except one. And his name is Madhu Mangal. You know who Madhu Mangal is? He's a Brahmin, and he liked eating laddu, so he had a big belly. And his big belly wouldn't fit through the window. So he called out for Krishna to help him, and Krishna didn't come. So the gopis caught Gopal, modern Gopal. He's got his legs going like this on the inside, and his head is stuck out the window. They got him. They caught him. So Mother Jasoda, Krishna was doing what he was doing for the happiness of the devotees. That's our Krishna. He doesn't need anything. He can produce anything. He doesn't need anything. Butter or anything. Nothing. But he asks us for a fruit or flower or leaf or water to be offered with love, and he accepts it. So if he goes to steal, it's fun. It's mischievous little boy, but the gopis, they love it. And they go say, Mother Jasoda, do you know what your boy is doing? And as they're telling the story, they laugh and laugh and laugh, and they're rolling on the ground. They're having a great time because it's for their it's for their pleasure. That's why. It's for their pleasure. And then not only that, he feeds to the monkeys. And when the monkeys are all full and they can't eat anymore, he breaks the butter pot and runs away. And if there's nothing in the storeroom, you know what he does? He goes in the house and pinches the children so they cry, and then he runs. It's right in the Bhagavatam. Why would he do that? It's a loving exchange with the elder gopis. He's playing like a little mischievous boy, and he's enjoying that activity, and they're enjoying that he's enjoying that activity, and they're enjoying. Instead of like, he's mischievous. And sometimes when the cowherd men, they catch him stealing butter, and Krishna just looks at them and smiles. And their hearts melt. They don't say anything. They go back to their homes. It's loving exchange. That's all. Yeah.
This is from Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. Krishna as Vrajendra Nandana appears once in a day of Brahma. This is quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, as I've read. Is this mentioned in any other Vedic text?
Well, yeah, I think you have to do some research because I'm sitting here, probably. But you do the homework rather than me.
Kirti Kondiparthi Prabhu. Ashwatthama was punished by Arjun for his misdeeds. Bhagavatam says Ashwatthama invoked Brahmastra on Uttara and Arjuna. Could you please explain how it unfolded? Chronologically, maybe? I don't understand the question.
I don't either.
Kirti Prabhu, if you can rephrase your question. Next question is from Amar Mataji. When I read Srimad Bhagavatam, I get lost in how Srila Prabhupada discusses the frailties of modern times. I start thinking about what I can do to help rather than reading from my heart and have a natural relationship with Srimad Bhagavatam. How can I stop myself from getting deviated?
Well, having a desire to help, that's good. But as you can continue to read on, you may get some answers how you can help.
This is from Chaitanya Rasa Prabhu's daughter, Satyabhama, who's 5 years old. He pointed that out.
Yeah, 5.
What are the 6 questions by the sages of Naimisharanya?
Naimisharanya.
Sure.
The first one, this is from memory. What's the all-around good for all living beings at all times? Second one is, what's the essence of all the scripture? The third is, what's the purpose for Krishna's appearing in this world? The fourth one is, describe the excellent activities of the Supreme Lord specific to the process of creation. The fifth one we just discussed a short while ago, and that is the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. And the sixth one is, after Krishna departs, where religious principles take shelter. How are we to access in this age of Kali that which Krishna provided when he was present? Those are the 6 questions.
So Kirti Kondiparthi Prabhu has clarified. Did Ashwatthama release the weapons on both Arjuna and Uttara?
No.
Simultaneously on different occasions?
Different occasions.
Were the weapons discharged before or after Ashwatthama was punished by Arjuna?
Before. Okay, we're done. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Shri Swami Maharaj ki Jai.